And there's a tool in Illustrator that allows you to, let me zoom in here. This tool allows you to sort of take the letter form itself. What you first have to do, there's an option in Illustrator that allows you to create outlines, which then makes the text uneditable in terms of changing it using the type tool. But what it allows you to do is sort of go in, and each one of these little points you can manipulate and sort of stretch and do things with. So, if you wanted to create an interesting looking Y, that's a little different. I don't know. You could do that. You can make slight variations, or you can make something completely different. And it's taking an existing font and sort of putting your own spin on it. So again, you can just stretch out the E a little bit, or you can do like what you did with what I did with the Y and make it completely different, completely weird, and everything. Yes.
With doing something like that with manipulating font,
yeah.
What kind of licensing are there licensing on fonts where you can't edit it and put it out? Or?
Yeah, I believe there is, but I think if you manipulate it enough, perhaps to where it's unrecognizable, then I think it's fair game. Because I'm quite sure that of the fonts that I've found, there are some that look like obvious fonts to me where someone just added something a little bit different. Yeah, that's something I guess the more I create different fonts of my own, I should find out about, just to make sure that I'm not getting in trouble. Like, I would say that the Y I create, if it even looks like a Y to anybody, would be okay. I mean, it's taking the Arial font and manipulating it and creating something that doesn't even look like the original Y that was there. So I would say this is fair game. I would say if it's a small manipulation, it might require some type of permission from somebody, but I'm not sure. Let's see. There's another way that I want to show, and this is the way that I think is the most personal way to do it. And all it really takes is some time, a pencil, a piece of paper, and a scanner. You can just take a piece of paper and a pencil and draw your own letter forms. Draw your own images on a piece of paper, and then if you have a scanner, scan them in. And then try to duplicate with using the program like what you drew. And it doesn't have to be exact. Like, when you're drawing, a lot of times you're not going to have everything at a perfect angle. Things are not going to be the same width. If you're creating an H, one side of the H might not look exactly like the other side of the H. That's where the program comes in handy, because you can use rulers and things like that to make edges straight. So I was just messing around creating different letter forms. There's a squiggly C and a D here, and using the pen tool, or the pen tool in Illustrator, allows you to do is on a separate layer, or the same layer if you want, allows you to sort of go in and sort of trace what you did on the piece of paper. You can trace it with precision, and then any kind of, like I said, any kind of weird things that were there before. When you were trying to draw it, you can sort of smooth out, again, using the ruler or whatever. So, I mean, this is a cool way to get really personal. And, the idea of, like, if you're going to make your own font, like an entire, family of letter forms, and upper, lowercase, maybe numbers, maybe, exclamation point, question mark, you'll want to, obviously have a little bit of drawing ability in order to get the letter forms to look very similar. Again, you can edit them in the program, but it's good to have them looking fairly the same on the piece of paper to start off. And that's sort of where it's tricky. But perhaps again, making a complete font isn't isn't all that important. Maybe just making individual letter forms. I think the fun thing is just playing around, drawing. I mean, if you're not a great drawer, I'm not a great drawer, but you can still do some interesting things. And I think the more you do it, obviously, I think you'll be surprised at how good you can get at doing this. So, yes, Jeff.
Do you have any programs that you recommend to take it from Adobe Illustrator to like a TrueType font or something?
Oh, that's good. I don't know if I've ever gotten that far with. I don't recall if I've ever gotten that far with any of mine. But there seems to me there was a program called FontGrapher. I think it might have been made by Macromedia. But yeah, I have no idea how you know what that's like. I think at work we had it at one time, but I haven't been able to find it. So at this point, I would have to imagine that either Adobe or Macromedia, or one of those two companies, would have something. Otherwise, I'm sure there's something, you know, there's some kind of shareware or freeware online that you could probably find. Yes.
Earlier you had mentioned that you don't like using drop shadows and other things.
Yeah.
I use it a lot where I work because it works. So
Yeah.
people expect it. People, well, they don't enjoy it. People expect it. People are comfortable with it.
Oh,
They
yeah.
use it. Obviously, it works.
Sure.
What do you rather use? Because obviously it works. It's not original, as we all know, from design. What do you rather use than use drop shadows?
Well, earlier, you know, I talked about using just, you know, I mean, an effective font, something that you can easily read, and something that, you know, you have the option of being able to make bold and italic, and, you know, something that will go well with the rest of the design. I think the way the piece is designed is what is really going to, you know, make or break it. And I think, you know, having a font that's readable but exciting too. Like, there's a couple of cheesy fonts that I like. There's a font, the Circus font, which has very limited use, but, you know, the letter forms themselves are pretty cool looking, and I think it creates a nice effect. But again, it would only look good on a circus type poster, I suppose, and nothing else. So I'd say, you know, the font choice itself would make a difference, and certainly the hierarchy of, you know, how the is it 10 minutes? Okay, all right. The hierarchy, you know, of the title, and then, you know, the first heading and the body copy itself. I think that would make a huge difference too. You know, it's sort of tough because I know there's a lot more that I still need to learn, and I know at work, you know, all of us have had most of the design classes, so we know what to use and what not to use. But I guess there's an effective way to probably use everything, even if it is cheesy. It just, you know, we like to think, you know, of a font like Comic Sans as being completely bad, but it does have its use, albeit limited. And I guess it's impossible, I think, to expect, you know, as a designer, to expect people who are not designers, you know, to use to know, you know, not to use a particular font or whatever. And again, you know, that's what's tough about any font that you create a 3D version of, because then again, does it belong on the page? Is it something that is going to be readable to people? So I guess it just depends. Yes, Mark.
Back when the lecture was going on, you were telling me that your design teachers and everything said that, you know, the Bush Cheney logo was much more effective than the, you know, Harry Edwards logo.
Yeah.
Could you explain like what main points brought them to that?
Well, I think the main point was simply, if I'm trying to remember what it looked like, I mean, the Bush logo, the font itself, I forget whether it had any sort of extrusion to it at all, but it was a thicker font. It was bold, sort of implied strength. It sort of implied, well, I'm sure it implies something different to everybody, but I could see the idea they're going with. This is a font that, you know, it was bolder. It, you know, the flag, it had the flag, I think, either behind or in front of it or something like that. It sort of just signified, to me at least, it signified strength and confidence. And that's what a bold font can get you. And you can get away with throwing a drop shadow in there, and it sort of gives it more, you know, it gives it more strength and power. But, you know, there are other ways to do it. I didn't hate the Carrie Edwards logo either, but it was something where I could understand, you know, the bold font being a reason for that being more prominent. Whether or not it had anything to do with why he won or not, I have no idea. You never know. It'd be funny if he won based on the, you know, the logo that he had for himself, but I doubt it. All right, so those are the different ways that I have. Certainly there are other ways, but I think these ways allow for quite a bit of flexibility. And I definitely think when you draw something yourself and you take it in the computer, then you can say, you know, it is yours. And then, you know, learning how to use this program, Adobe Illustrator, isn't too difficult. Learning the basic things is easy. It's one of those things where it's easy to learn and tough to master, because there's a lot to this program and there's a lot to being able to create fonts. I go back to my PowerPoint presentation. I'll finish up with what I had. I remember which one I was at here. Okay. So this is a two-dimensional typeface that I created last year. The idea was to take some sort of tool that wasn't a pen or a pencil or a paintbrush and use it to try to create a typeface, something that is uncomfortable to use, but you learn how to use it just like a pen or a pencil. So this was actually done using an X-Acto knife, and I would dip it into ink. So that's how I got the obvious scratchy lines, and a lot of people thought that this was a rather intimidating typeface because it was something that maybe you'd find on a ransom note or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I guess I could see it. But again, the idea of creating a font, a complete font, which this isn't. This is just, I believe, just all capital letters, but is to make them look similar. So I mean, I might have gotten away from that with a couple, but the basic idea is the same throughout all of them. This is using the same technique with the ink, X-Acto ink, or X-Acto knife and ink. This time I turned the X-Acto knife to its side, and I used the side of the X-Acto knife. So, and these are actually a mix of upper and lower case, but the idea is sort of the same. You get nice little smearing effects and stuff like this. And to show you that you can actually use a font you create for something useful in a design, this is a promotional materials for a fictional event for trash cleanup for a city. Now I added images that I took my own of trash and different things like that, but it's using the actual typeface I created, sort of implying messiness and trash being messy and the city being messy. Let's clean up the city. Again, using it just for the header for this particular event, because I don't think it would work as body copy. I think it would be very difficult to read. So this is a poster and flyer, and these are two postcards for it, the front and the back. So, I mean, it is cool, and it is possible to use a typeface that you create, or a font that you create, that you can actually use. And it just gives you, something else to use instead of using, the default fonts, again, that come with the programs. It's just my thank yous, including happy birthday to Mark. I forgot to say happy birthday to you earlier, so I apologize. And that's pretty much it. I can take any questions anybody has. If anybody's got anywhere. Yes, sir.
With the font you made in there, because you obviously scanned that one in, I'm assuming, since you did with an X-Acto.
Yeah.
How'd you transpose that from, the digital copy you scanned into using it within? Did you cut out the letters within the scan, or? Yeah,
and that's if I remember correctly, I think I was in just Photoshop, and I would. I think I cheated and used what's called the magic wand tool, which doesn't always work, because sometimes there's a lot of different shadows in color. Like for an image, a lot of times it'll eat into little parts of an image that you don't want. But I think just because mainly the page I had was just black ink and white paper, I think that's how I did it. So, okay, all right. Yes.
How did you, if you haven't used a font program to make that into a font, how did you do the taking out the trash thing?
The actual the whole design, or just the typeface itself? Oh.
I mean, how did you put together taking out the trash?
Oh, well, I might have created, actually, I'm trying to remember now. This was like a year and a half ago that I did that, but I think I might have created individual files for each letter. That's something I think I did it. Either that, or I just would crop, like in Photoshop. I would crop like the A, say the file, or just copy and paste it from one program to another, then go undo crop, and then go to the next one. But you can get it where you can cut out the white background using tools in Photoshop, and then you can move the file or the font however you want. So, and then you can slant it, do everything that you could do with a regular font, regular digital font that you'd find on there. So,
I think there's a certain creative portion of what you did with the X-Acto knife and things like that.
Yeah.
The mechanical side of things is I believe, correct from the lighting between the characters. Is making the adjustments between the different characters.
Yeah.
The eye looks different than the A.
Yeah. Again, the same rules, the same sort of things that apply with with the regular font will apply, with